I am a miracle simply because I exist. And I remember my grandmother, who's raised me, was like, every year around your birthday, you get like this. And I had a newer sense of clarity to really understand what she was acknowledging and asking me. It was an invitation to ask me the name. And that was essentially, you are worthy of being celebrated and centered. Why are you allowing whatever circumstances or whatever things happen in your life to bog you down on your special day? And it was a beautiful invitation, even though it was simple, but for me, because I had already been in process, it invited me to really think about that. And that's what came up for me. It was all those missed calls, all those missed sense of acknowledgments or an afterthought. And that's a big thing for me. My story is that I'm a burden. Welcome to Living in 3D Power. Discover your truth, discern your path, determine your power. I'm Dr. Amber Sessoms, and together, let's unlock our power, build authentic connections, and foster collective liberation. Hey y'all, welcome back to episode 14 of Living in 3D Power. And guess what? This is a special episode because it is my birthday. I am 44 today. I know. I look about 28, as Emma has consistently said, but 44, and what a blessing to make it to this age. And today I wanted to do a special segment and really just reflect on my birthday and my becoming, and just think about what I used to think about my birthdays, and also now how I navigate this area of my life. And thinking about, if you are not subscribing to my Substack, I really encourage you to do so, because every Saturday I send out a weekend roundup, and I typically will put in news stories, but I'm also weaving in the podcast and also weaving in my 3D power tools, which I have talked about. And that's really looking at the power of discovery, discernment, and determination. And within that newsletter, what I do is I give you readers some prompts, some journal prompts, some questions to really consider throughout the weekend and into the next week regarding the topic. So this past Saturday, I sent out a newsletter, and it was really reflecting on my birthday and thinking about my journey of becoming. And I am just going to pause and be in this moment with you to just do some of that reflection along with y'all. So I'm going to go to my Substack, and within there, I was talking about the Artist Way. So I'm holding it up if you're not watching. The Artist Way, this is the 25th anniversary edition. I think this came out maybe 30 years ago. It's by Julia Cameron. I've had this book, y'all, for a number of years. And last year, I was in a writing workshop, and one of the facilitators talked about, she did the Artist Way. And it's the Artist Way, a spiritual path to higher creativity. I had bought it before then. I don't know what made me buy this book, but I consider myself a creative person. I consider all of us creative people, because God, the creator who created us, the most phenomenal thing in creation, why would he not, if we're made in his image and likeness, also make us creative beings? So I'm really cleanly aligned with that. And I know just from my own lived experience, we will get further and further away from being our creative selves. So I still don't know when I bought this book, why I bought this book, but it kept calling to me. And I think I was on Instagram, and I cannot recall the person's name, but she does a lot of work with white individuals, helping them to become more anti-racist. I think she uses the language, or really becoming co-conspirators in the work of liberation. And she said she started this book, and it has been transformative for her. So I got curious then. And then I had a session with my therapist, and she says, you need to journal. And I'm like, oh, I have all these books. If I could show y'all on my desk, I have stacks upon stacks of books. And I was curating. So you see maybe some books missing from my bookshelf behind me, because I've been taking all the books that have helped me along my journey. And because of the nerd in me, I was doing a literature review, not a thorough one like you would do for a dissertation, but looking at all the books that helped to shape me and weaving in the ways that they have informed my work and in my framework and the work that I do. So I'm taking inventory of that. And she's like, no, I need you to just journal for you. And I had to pause with that, because a lot of the work I do is in response to my profession, is in response to my business. And when she said that you need to do it for you, it gave me pause because I don't typically do things just for me. There has to be some outcome that's going to benefit something else. And I'm realizing, and just even working with my therapist, that if I don't take care of myself, this is what I tell my clients, right? Then all the other things are going to fall by the wayside. So when she said that, I took that as another cue to read this book. And it's 12 weeks. I, again, had no idea what it was about, but it's really this spiritual journey that she goes through. And what I love is that she talks about this sense of presence, right? That the more that we write, the more present we can be. And it's a practice in being present. So you think about mindfulness and people say, breathe and do all these things in mindfulness. And a lot of people struggle with mindfulness because they think that they're supposed to be absent of thought. And mindfulness is really being mindful of what comes in. It's not good or bad. We don't put any judgment on it. It just is. So in the same way, the first thing that she wants you to do every morning for 12 weeks is what she calls morning pages. I told you, I just started this a week ago, and the morning pages, she suggests you get up 30 minutes early and you start your journal writing. And you just write 3 pages every day, stream of consciousness, just write. And when I tell y'all, we talk about journaling, I journal, right? I have the prompts. I help y'all to journal. But this idea that there's no prompt, it's just literally whatever is coming up for you. What that is doing is inviting you to be present with your thoughts. The moment most people wake up, their mind is ramping and racing. And she's asking you and inviting you into that quiet to really reflect on what is it that you're thinking. And it could literally be like squirrel, right? You have ADHD, you're all over the place. And any and all things are okay. But what I'm doing in this work is also because I've been doing a lot of work with my soma and my body, is as I'm writing, I'm being present enough and curious enough about where it rests in my body, whatever might come up. And I'm leaning into that. And that has been the liberation journey, y'all, is that whatever's coming up for me, I'm getting curious about it. Oop, I felt this tinge. I felt this pressure. I felt this heaviness on my heart. Let me lean into that. And it's such a gift to be present. So I just highly encourage y'all to do that. And the reason I'm bringing it up, because I have my journal here, which I also got from the event that Evita Colon, Poetry, that she put on in this intergenerational work. And I love intergenerational work that she did with the Ware Center and in partnership with the Lancaster County Community Foundation. And they gave us these beautiful journals and they have trees on them. So I started writing in there. And I did an entry the other day reflecting on my upcoming 44th birthday. And it said 3 pages. I think I might have written 5 or 6. I was just letting it flow. And it was such a beautiful practice because here's some things that I really realized about myself. And what I did, I just wrote. And that turned into my weekend roundup. And I want to share a bit of that with y'all as I go to it. I'm going to find it in my Substack here. And I titled it Centering Liberation at 44, The Art of Rewriting My Story of Worth. Honoring grief, reclaiming joy, and discovering what it means to celebrate yourself on the page and in the body. And this has been a practice for me, celebrating myself on the page and in the body. So you have to not just put it out there, you have to also embody this. Where does it rest in my body? So I'm going to read this passage to you, and I hope that you'll enjoy it as I reflect on this new chapter of my life. And this was the Substack that I wrote on Saturday. Hey, collective. This Wednesday, I'll turn 44. As I approach this birthday, I find myself deep in the first week of a 12-week creative recovery journey through The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. At the heart of this process are 2 core practices: morning pages, 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing every morning to clear your mind, release stuck emotions, and tap into buried truth. And artist dates, weekly solo excursions that nurture your inner child and replenish your creative well. This work isn't about performance. It's about presence. And this week, presence led me into something unexpected, a reflection on grief, celebration, and the power of showing up for myself. Last year, I made the commitment to celebrate me during my birth month. In the past, my birthday had always been a source of consternation, riddled with grief and the ever-looming feelings of whether my life was worthy of celebration. Was it the despair of unmet expectations? That once, just once, I might matter enough to be a forethought and not an afterthought. That someone might actually plan something for me with intention, with care, with love, that reminded me I was not just seen, but cherished. Could the world slow down just long enough to gaze my way? Could I be the center? This body, this Black body, this female Black body, this wife, this mother of three, this daughter, this daughter, this daughter, this daughter. When you grow up disconnected from your birth mother, whether by thousands of miles or just a few feet, a story starts to form about your place in the world and your right to be celebrated by your existence. Imagine the day that's supposed to be filled with cards and candles passes by without a single call from the one who birthed you. Where would that live in your body? Where would that feeling take root and grow into weeds of despair? For me, it was my worth, my sacredness, my dignity. These moments of missed calls or text weren't just about my mother. My father, too, sometimes reinforced the same ache. Their absence wasn't neutral. It mirrored a lifetime of being pushed to the margins, another reminder that I never felt fully integrated into the family unit. How could I be? A mother still struggling for stability, a single father trying his best while raising twins and reaching for two older children across two different households. Sometimes in the frenzy of survival, children become collateral damage. You learn not to expect celebration. You guard yourself. You tell yourself maybe the miracle of your life just isn't meant to be honored. And in the rare moments that someone does show up, skating parties in your youth, a surprise 18th birthday party by friends, a surprise Zoom call during your 40th by your husband, you don't know what to do with it. You shrink. You fumble. You become Issa Rae's The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl, unsure how to inhabit this strange feeling of being centered, because no one ever taught you how. And then one day, something shifts. You ask with curiosity, how much of my life was spent in grief because I never acknowledged the trauma living in my body? The sadness, the disappointment, the constriction. It was there in my chest, my breath, my posture. And when I finally turned toward it, cupped up that little Amber, even the 22-year-old Amber, 10 days away from becoming a single mom, crying in a friend's bedroom, I started to ask a new question. What if I could see her with care, with clarity and conviction? What if I could say, your story was penned by destructive forces, but you always had the power to write a new one? And then I began to see people had always shown up. Love had always been there. I just hadn't known how to let it in. And I have a quote here that I wanted to emphasize again. You have always been celebrated. You have always been loved. You just had to look inward and recognize that love starts within. Living in 3D power means honoring the story you've lived while giving yourself permission to write a truer one. So I'm just sitting with that, y'all. And the power of giving yourself permission to speak your truth, to honor the grief that was in your youth, that you can see the through line that carries through to present day and how you've navigated certain spaces, certain times in your life. We talk about the body keeps the score. So thinking about me, every time around my birthday, I would get this heaviness and this sadness, and I couldn't fully articulate it because in the hustle and bustle of life, I never allowed myself to be fully present and curious enough to lean into what that was. And it was always outward focusing and thinking about, well, I think my husband should do this, or people that care about me should do this for me. And when I looked inward, what I found was those stories of unworthiness, of, this invisibility and this erasure that not even my parents, right, could remember all the time or would send me a message. And there's a deep wound that happens there that if you don't excavate and uncover that, will live on. So it wasn't until last year where I got really serious about, I am not going to have another birthday and be sad, right? I am a miracle simply because I exist. And I remember my grandmother who's raised me was like, every year around your birthday, you get like this. And I had a newer sense of clarity to really understand what she was acknowledging and asking me. It was an invitation to ask me the name. And that was essentially, you are worthy of being celebrated and centered. Why are you allowing whatever circumstances or whatever things happen in your life to bog you down on your special day? And it was a beautiful invitation, even though it was simple, but for me, because I had already been in process, it invited me to really think about that. And that's what came up for me. It was all those missed calls, all those missed sense of acknowledgments or an afterthought. And that's a big thing for me. My story is that I'm a burden. My mother was away in college. She came home literally weeks before I was born, not even a month, and had this new baby that no one knew about. And the sense of burden that has lived in my body because I took on that story, even though I had nothing to do with it, really has put me in a position where I will do for others, where I will celebrate others. And y'all, trust me, if I'm going to throw you a birthday party, it's going to be phenomenal. I'm doing documentaries. I'm doing spoken word. I'm, getting all the things set. I'm color coordinating, doing it all. And it's because I love that. I think that's another way that my creativity comes out of my being. But I've always had this longing, even I think about even on my birthday. For years, I would take my girls shopping on my birthday and take them out and do things for them. And in this new season, I'm like, no, I'm going to do something for me. And when you live in a world that will tell you, particularly as a mother, that you are selfish for centering yourself, you are selfish for wanting to go away and be in solitude when you have a whole household, it will keep you from doing things to nourish yourself and learn more about yourself. So last year, what I did, I went to a concert all by myself in Chicago. I flew overnight to Chicago. It's really close to Pennsylvania. And I went to see Jonathan McReynolds and the Hallelujah Tour. So Erica Campbell, Israel Houghton, Tasha Cobbs, Reynolds, and Jacqueline Carr. And I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. And it was just beautiful to be amongst complete strangers in a new city. I had never stepped out of the airport. It was always a connecting flight. And just to be. And I went to the spa. I treated myself to the spa on my birthday. Now, catch what I'm saying here. I booked myself a flight to go to a concert. I did that on my own. I booked the spa for myself. I turned into doing it for myself because, again, there was a sense that I could not trust or honor that someone would care enough about me to center me. And this year, y'all, what is different is I've let my husband plan whatever he's planning. He said today, I have a schedule. And I said, and I was joking with him because if we're traveling, when I tell you I have an entire itinerary and I use an app, and I'm gonna put it in the show notes, but I think it's called Wanderlust. It's something like that. It's Wanderlog or something to that degree. You can put in where you want to go, your flights. It will tell you the distance, if you can walk, if you can take a car. I had the whole thing planned out, and it's all centered around food. So he's like, well, actually, it's not that detailed, Amber, because I will jam pack a schedule. I'm learning to ease up on that, but I like to explore, and my husband's much more laid back. So this is my first year. I'm relinquishing that control and trusting and honoring that I can be loved in a way that is meaningful to me, that people can see me, my husband can see me, and he can honor the ways in which I need to be loved. So this is big for me, y'all. And that goes into the questions that I developed for this Substack. And I just want to go over those with y'all. So the power of discovery. Discovery invites us to turn toward the truth we've been avoiding and find ourselves waiting there. Warning pages gave me access to grief I had been holding in my body for years. Uncelebrated birthdays, longing for affirmation, old narratives that no longer serve me. But in the stream of honesty, I found clarity and the courage to challenge those stories. And that is the work. We have to challenge our ways of knowing and being and think about, is this story serving me, or is it a story I need to unlearn and let go and write a new one? So here are the questions. what did birthdays mean to me growing up? So in thinking about that, I said that I would have skating parties. We had Doc's roller rink in Middletown. It wasn't much in Middletown, but we had a skating rink. And I think I had maybe 2 or 3 birthdays there, but I don't really recall birthdays and celebrations for myself. And part of that obviously was the ache of my mother not being there, or, thinking she's going to call me this year for my birthday and not getting a call. And I know and I honor the love that my grandmother gave to me then and continues to give to me. She's raised me as her 5th daughter for sure. And I do recall one time my mother actually, I think, might have come to my birthday party. And here's what I recall. And I'm just feeling that in my shoulders as I even reflect on it. I can see it clear as day, but I'm skating. My friends are there. They don't know my mother. They know my grandmother as my mother. And they see this. I mean, my mom's almost 6'1". They see this beautiful woman skating around. And guess what she's doing? Taking all the attention off of it being my day and making it about her. And as I sit with that now, there's something Emma's going to say that you'll hear in the next segment when I asked her about birthdays and what she thinks you should do on your birthdays. That's sitting with me in this moment, because I can recall that moment where my mom made it about her. I can also recall in this moment, it's taking me back to, this is my through line, right? That she took away the spotlight for me being centered on my wedding day. As you know, you're getting ready, the photographer's in there, my friends are getting me in my dress, and she barges in the room, all disheveled and just startling everyone and just taking over the space. And what Emma says is, that is your day. And it should only be your day. And if someone's taking that day away from you, then you need to say, why are you trying to take the spotlight away from me? Or something to that effect, she says. And I think Emma was just speaking to a truth in this moment. I'm sitting with it because at the time when she said it, I didn't realize what she was really saying was something I've experienced. Something that my mom always said was, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. So I never had, when she would come back in the home or be in and out, those were the stories that she would say. So I never had this sense of autonomy when she was around. So the sense of centering myself has always been really challenging for me, because the messages were really clear that I didn't deserve to be centered, or so I thought. So those are the things I remember about birthdays. And I remember my 18th birthday. It's a special birthday, right? Still in high school. And I remember crying and thinking, no one is even going to acknowledge my birthday. I vaguely remember my grandmother being like, what's wrong? Asking me or comforting me and that. And then I remember going to my friend Naomi's house, which is interesting because I just saw her yesterday at her class reunion. We graduated in 99, and we went over her house. That was a hangout spot, and they threw me a surprise birthday party. And it's interesting in this moment that I feel like there's levity in my heart as I think about that. But it's these moments that I have where I will play into the narrative that no one is going to show up for me, that I'm unlovable, that I'm forgotten, that I'm always pushed to the margins. And then when the opposite happens, it's because I have rehearsed and I've lived that other experience. To shift it can be challenging for me. So I wish I could recall the shift that I had to do, but I can recall that in other areas of my life where I was like, where I'm in my head and saying, I know they're not going to show up for me. And then when they do, and if I recall in the past before I did some serious work, I probably wasn't able to shift to really see that because I was still stuck in that grief spiral. And now I can acknowledge it as it's coming, as the stories are unfolding in my head, that not enoughness or people can't show up for me or I can't be centered. I can stop and disrupt that much quicker than I was before. I can recognize it so that when they disrupt that story, that's an untrue story, that I can lean into that. So those are just some things that are coming up for me in that question. And these are the things I encourage you to do when you're thinking about these journal prompts. If you're not writing them out, which I really encourage you to do, but just thinking about that or talking with a loved one about them, like I do with Emma, super important and helpful. And another question that I have for discovery is, what story did I inherit about my worthiness to be celebrated, right? So I've talked about that, is that I didn't deserve it, that the spotlight would be taken, that I am a burden and how dare I. These are the unhealthy stories that I told myself. Another question that I wrote was, where in my life have I been made to feel like an afterthought? And I've talked about that in my life where I would get the message later in the evening or before I went to bed, oh, happy birthday. And it would be something so basic, it wouldn't be a phone call. Or it would be if I made a post on social media and then it made someone remember. And I don't want it to be that I have to remind you to know when my birthday is, to know when you should show up for me. That doesn't feel authentic to me. So another segment of my work is the power of discernment. And in that, discernment is the courage to question the narratives we've accepted as truth, right? You got to question those and disrupt those and write new ones. So I saw how much of my identity had been shaped by emotional absence. But discernment gave me space to name that pain without becoming it, to ask what I want to carry forward and what I'm ready to leave behind. So discernment questions, where in my body do I still carry the grief of being unseen or unacknowledged? It always rests in my chest, y'all. That is my first indicator. When I talk about, Oprah says, your body's one of your greatest teachers, and it says, what is it here to teach me? You have to lean into that. When I feel something in my chest and my heart, I know that there's a message I need to lean into and get curious about. That's where my grief carries. What does it feel like to center myself, not out of ego, but out of reverence? And again, I experienced that last year where I went to that concert where I did the spa and it felt great. It was my journey of becoming into, I deserve this. I can honor the miracle of my life. But now I'm switching that from I to we, and really relinquishing that need to control it, or relinquishing or trying to hold on to the need and the narrative that it has to be me to do it because no one else is going to do it. I can honor, like I said at the end of my story, that people have always shown up. Love had always been there. I just hadn't known how to let it in. And in this season, I'm learning to let it in. Another question, and this is a big one. Where do I still flinch when loved? So y'all, Issa Rae, awkward black girl all day. I remember being at the conference where I talked about this, that we did a session on Black female leadership, and being in the hallway after a session, people were coming up to us in droves. Women were crying. They just felt so connected and heard and seen and valued. And someone was giving me affirmations, and I'll never forget this, but Dr. Janine Jones, she is a powerhouse in the field of school psychology, a brilliant Black female professor, assistant dean now, just scholars beyond scholars. And she just gently touches my shoulder or my back and she goes, receive it. Just receive the compliment. And I'm like, you're right. I'm just going to receive it. So that is something I still struggle with. Have you ever been in a situation where someone gives you a compliment and you feel the need to give them a compliment back? It is very unnatural for me to sit in that. And I'm in this season where I'm learning to accept compliments, to almost expect them, y'all. To accept the compliment and just say thank you. There needs to be nothing else to say back. I don't need to boomerang and give you some other compliment. I need to sit in that and see where that rests in my body and how that makes me feel. Because what that's teaching me is that this idea, this flinching that I do and this knee-jerk reaction to either not accept it, but to receive that has been so healing for me. So I'm honoring that in this season. And that's what I'm going to be practicing because my husband's taking me away for 3 days. And I don't know what's really planned. I know 2 restaurants because I've always wanted to go to these restaurants, and I'll definitely have to report back on those on social media. Kalea and Vernick Fish. So I'm super excited about those because if there's one thing I'm bougie about my food, and he made me that way because I was pretty much meat and potatoes before him. So I'm excited about that and allowing that in and not flinching when I receive love. And then the last segment of this is the power of determination. Determination is not about effort. It's about devotion. So choosing to celebrate myself this year isn't performative, it's restorative. It's a radical decision to center myself with care and dignity, not because someone else remembered, but because I did. And in the remembering, what I'm doing is I'm taking off that shield and allowing my husband to love on me, allowing my girls to love on me. So I'm excited about that. Determination, curiosities, okay? What is one way I can intentionally honor the miracle of my life this week? Just being in it, basking in it is what I'm going to be doing this week. Basking in being thought of in an intentional way to do things that I love. Another thing is, who are the people who center me without asking? my grandmother since the moment I took my first breath. Since the moment she knew about me and didn't have much time to prepare, she always centered me without asking. She centers my girls, she centers our family, my husband, my girls sometimes. Emma's the best at that. But these are the things that you have to think about. Your friends who will check in. I had to have a test last week and my friend just circled back and she goes, I'm just checking on your friend, how you're doing, your group text messages. Those things, the people who center you without asking, that is something that you have to cultivate and nourish. Because if you think about it, there have always been those people and we push it away. We don't acknowledge it. We don't think we're worthy of it. Cultivate that list, develop that list of people. It can be very small and there's nothing wrong with having a small list. People that center you without asking. If I have to beg to be centered, to be celebrated, to be seen, that is not something that I need because it feels inauthentic and cheap to me. And that goes back into my feelings of worth from my youth because I felt like I had to beg for it. And then the last question for determination is, how will I write a new narrative that reflects the truth? I have always been loved. I have always been loved. And then this practice of journaling, of this stream of consciousness, that is something that's helping me to write a new narrative because it's helping me to recall the things in my body when they come up and then recall and take literally time travel is something she puts in her book. And this is something we already do in the work of school psychology, but thinking about taking yourself back to that moment and looking at it from a new vantage point, a new gaze. And that's what I did when I told the story of my birthdays. And when I look back, when I think about me crying 10 days before I was having JoJo, I just had turned 22. My friend Dana and Jason were right there with me. I wasn't alone. I might have been afraid. I might have been sad. I might have been angry that I had to do this on my own. But I wasn't alone with them. And when I literally can go back to the moment, because my body can take me right back there, I can transport there. I can see where I'm sitting on the edge of bed and they're on the other side, staring at me with such care and love. And inviting that feeling in when I blocked it before, to see that I'm not on my own. Those are the moments I can transport myself to think I'm never alone. If I need to call Graham in the middle of the night, she's going to be there. Those are the things and those stories that have always been there. When she's that first person I would call when something was going on, that I can recall that I've always been loved, always been loved. So I'm hoping that this is helpful to you as I'm reflecting on turning 44 and thinking about I've always been loved, because I want us to take a moment to connect with Emma and just see how she loves on her mama, to see how she is the truth teller that she is, and to think that she is the beautiful manifestation of what my husband and I created, and she's one of my greatest gifts. So enjoy this little brief episode with Emma.
It's me, it's me, it's me. It's me, it's me, it's me. Hey, it's me. Today we are going to be talking about birthdays, and today is not a regular podcast. It's my mom's birthday.
I'm 28 today.
No, 21.
Ooh, 21. Well, you keep saying that I look like I'm 28, so I thought I would go with that. But yes, my 44th birthday. It's a blessing. I'm excited about it. So we're filming this prior to my birthday, but
Yeah, 3 days.
I just wanted to ask Emma, because I'm having some of my own reflections. So the listeners have been hearing just about my own reflections and how my birthday hasn't always been joyful, but I made a conscious decision last year to make sure that I celebrate me.
Yeah.
Because I believe that everyone needs to be celebrated. So I just wanted to ask you some quick questions. And the first one I want to ask is, what do you love most about birthdays?
What I love most about birthdays is celebrating with your family and doing fun things.
So what fun things do you like to do?
Dinner,
Dinner. And what's your favorite dinner of all time for your birthday?
hibachi.
We've been going for how many years now? I'm trying to think. I don't know. At least 3, maybe. But you love, like we all know, Emma's going to want to go to hibachi.
I love my Shirley Temples.
Daddy got you in the Shirley Temples. We go out and you're like, can I have a Shirley Temple, please? And most people laugh because they're like, what little kid is asking for Shirley Temples?
It's good.
With your pinky up as you drink it. I made that part up, y'all.
I do that sometimes when I'm drinking water. I don't know why.
I've seen you do it when you drink tea. Yeah. But you said you love most about birthdays spending time with family. And today, actually, we're going to 2 different houses because April is a big birthday month for our family. So we have 2 different birthdays today, Uncle Percy and then Grandma Eleanor. So we'll be running to different houses to celebrate. But you're saying you love most being around family for your birthday.
Yeah.
And what do you love most about that?
I love the company, and I love that you get to hang out and talk with them.
Yes, and guess who you'll get to be hanging out with today? Uncle
Avery.
Uncle Avery. And the listeners kind of know about Uncle Avery because I was getting so many messages or comments being like, what did he say? Now I want to know what he said. But it shall never be spoken. But yes, he's cooking. Him and his twin, Jamal, are going to be cooking for Grandma Eleanor today. So you know the food is going to be amazing. So I'm excited about that. And I love what you're saying about family and food. Those are 2 of my favorite things.
Yep.
But I think for so long for my birthday, it didn't seem like I had that connection because you know how I was raised by Grandma and Pop, and then my mom hasn't been in my life, and then my dad. So it's all this things. But can you imagine having all these different households that are trying to figure out ways to make sure that they can support you or they can celebrate you? So there had been so many birthdays where I just felt really disconnected and not seen and not celebrated. So I love what you're saying about being around family because that is super important. So I love that. And then I guess the second question I want to ask you is, what do you think every adult should do for their birthday?
They should have a party and go to a spa and have dinner.
Come on, spa. Spa and dinner, those are my things. But have a party. What kind of party?
Family party.
A family
and friends.
Party. Family and friends, yes. And I love that you're saying that because my friend Alan, so you know Alan because you hang out with her daughter, she celebrates her birthday every year. And she's really intentional about bringing her family and her friends, like her chosen family, she calls us, to celebrate with her because she has a similar experience to me where she just felt like birthdays weren't great. So I think that's super important that you can maybe not have good beginnings or not good memories, and you can change those stories and change those memories and surround yourself with people that love you. So I think that's great. And then Doris, you know, we just had her big 40th birthday party, and she usually goes away for her birthday. So a lot of people will say, I'm going to go on vacation for my birthday. As you're an adult, like I'm going to some island. And she was intentional for her 40th that she wanted to have her family and friends to celebrate her. She had a wardrobe change. It was beautiful. And I'm watching my 2 friends be intentional about celebrating themselves. And it taught me something about how important that is. And it's awkward for me when all eyes are on you, when you're like, oh my gosh. But I think you should welcome that in and be like, there's people that love you. And I think so much of our life we can focus on not feeling like people see us. And that is a beautiful time to feel seen. So I'm looking forward to celebrating with my family on my birthday on today, even though we're filming on Sunday. But wondering where we'll go eat. Because that's one of my favorite things is my love language is food. So what else would you like to say about birthdays before we end our little short segment today?
I think birthdays, you should celebrate all about you. And if someone's trying to steal your spotlight, say, why are you trying to steal my spotlight? It's my birthday.
Come on, center yourself. I love that. It should be all about you, at least for that day.
Yeah.
But what do you do when it feels awkward when it's about you? Do you ever feel like that when all eyes are on you and you're like, why is everyone making a big deal about me?
Yeah, I'm like, just smile.
But I think it's so important. We need to get used to that. I think because we live in a world, particularly as Black women and Black girls, where we're not really centered, which means that we're usually pushed to the margins. But to really focus on someone that is usually pushed to the side, I think it's a practice for us that we need to start taking in and being like, I deserve this. I deserve to be centered and celebrate it. So you're showing me how to do that. So I think it's super important. But thank you for your nuggets of wisdom or your chicken nuggets of wisdom today. So anything you want to leave with the audience before we leave on my special day that's all about me, right?
Happy birthday.
I don't know if the Michael picked that up, but Emma just gave me a big hug for my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. There we go.
Yay.
And center the person on their birthday and make it all about them. I love that. And if it's not, say, why are you making this about you? It's my day. There we go.
Bye.
All right, y'all, right? She is telling me, inviting me to center myself. And if someone tries to step on and steal my shine, excuse me, I'm going to need you to sit down over there. Today's my day. I absolutely love that. So I also said to her, so remember, if you try to make it about you on Wednesday, then I'm going to tell you the same thing. Because, you know, she's only 10, so that's what they do. But just thinking about going back to the newsletter, again, that's sitting with me so much what she said, but going back to the newsletter, how I closed it out with this idea or this visual journal prompt that you can do. So I invite you to reclaim your story by returning to your body and your creativity. And here's the visual journaling prompt, something to do. Draw, collage, or script a scene from your childhood where you long to feel celebrated. Now, reimagine that scene with your present self entering the frame. Your present self entering the frame. This is how you time travel. You go back and you have a different vantage point because you've lived and you've seen and you can start unlearning. Say, what do you say to your younger self? What do you give them? Thinking about cupping up little Amber, embracing her. What do you give little Amber, little whoever you are? And the third, feel. This is so important. What colors or textures feel like celebration, softness, or sacredness? Literally sit in that. What does it feel? Where do you feel it? How do you want it to feel versus how it has felt? So let this be the beginning of a new conversation between the you who was, the you who is, and the you who is still becoming. To reclaim the center is to return to the truth. You were never meant to live on the margins of your own story. So here's to 44, to the sacred return, to becoming the woman my younger self needed, to the constant unfolding of new ways to love me, and to telling the truth, love has been here all along. Love has been here all along. Just change your gaze and you can find it. And it starts with you. So put that gaze inward. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it spoke to you and how you might reframe how you celebrate yourself, whether it be a birthday or just anything. You deserve it. Honor yourself and your worth. It's not in the things that you produce. It's simply because you're a human being. So if this resonated with you, I hope you will subscribe to my Substack so you'll receive newsletters, reflections like this every weekend, every Saturday. You can also look for me on social media, on my Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. And you'll also see those reflections as well there. And especially my YouTube channel where you'll see shorts and you'll see full episodes where you can connect with Emma and I as we engage in this ongoing conversation of love, of centering ourselves, of having this intergenerational conversation. So that little Amber that's being cupped up, I'm cupping up little Emma in that as well. So like, subscribe, comment. We'd love to hear from y'all. And again, if you have questions or ideas for a future episode, the link is in the show notes. Please click there and you can input what you would like us to talk about. You can do it on our website or any of our social medias. But I look forward to hearing from y'all. I love and appreciate you, community. Thank you for helping myself and Emma feel seen, heard, and valued, and more than anything, loved. Until next time, I hope you soak in the power of discovering your truth, discerning your power, and determining your path to wholeness and liberation. Take care.